In 1987, just 6 years after the first official reporting of what would become known as AIDS, an American pharmaceutical executive, Mary Ann Leeper, wondered what she could do to make a contribution to confront an increasingly growing epidemic. That very same year, America's Food and Drug Administration declared HIV prevention as a new indication for male condoms, which up to that point had almost exclusively been used for the prevention of pregnancy. The emerging epidemic continued to make headlines in that year, with Princess Diana stunning the world when she's photographed shaking the hand of a person living with HIV in a London hospital. The FDA sanctioning the first ever human testing of a vaccine against HIV, and AIDS becoming the first disease ever debated on the floor of the United Nations General Assembly. Activists began to mobilize and call on governments to respond more effectively. By that time, over 40,000 people had died of AIDS. Mary Ann had been hearing about a Danish doctor, Lasse Hassel, who was doing some interesting work. Hassel had been listening to a fellow doctor speaking about the new AIDS scourge and the problems that women were facing in preventing infections. That very same day, Hassel was challenged to do something about it. He went home, cut up some hospital gloves, and joined the parts together with a clothing iron. All of this intrigued Mary, and she soon found herself flying to Copenhagen to get a first-hand look at what she thought might be the world's next great health innovation, something that had the potential to revolutionize women's health. Arriving at Hassel's farmhouse, he opened the door with a cigar in his mouth and welcomed her in. And a few minutes later, he emerged with an old cigar box. Mary recalls that inside were all these bits and pieces, metal, plastics, and all different kinds of things. The presentation may have been unusual, but Mary Ann had high hopes for Hassel's invention as she returned to the United States. After spending some time developing the product, Mary Ann was asked to present the female condom to the press, something she thought would be a small, intimate gathering.
Who do you think is going to come to this? They said it didn't matter. They sent out, the announcements. It didn't matter. The idea was just to get it out that this was being developed for the United States. So I go over there to do the talk, right? And I walk into the room, and you might have thought that the President of the United States was coming. The room was full of people. There was a podium with every TV lineup and cameras all over. Oh my goodness. I had not talked about publicly about, at this point I was just developing it. I didn't know what to do. And I'm standing in the back of the room, and there's a journalist standing next to me, and she said, "How are you going to do this?" She said, "You can't say condom out loud." Mm-hmm. And she's saying to me, "How are you going to talk about this?" And I said, "I don't know." And I went in and I thought, well, I can't worry about that. Yeah. I just have to get the message out. Well, I got the message out.
And get the message out Mary did. I am Buhle Mabaso, and I will be taking you on a journey of sharing and learning over the 9 episodes in this masterclass on the FC2 female condom. This series will take you through the remarkable story about a product that has changed millions of women's lives, impacted the spread of HIV globally, and remains one of the key tools that women and men can use to prevent sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV as well as unplanned pregnancies. We will better understand the evolution of the female condom, hear from global leaders in health and human rights, as well as gain practical information on the use and programming of the FC2 female condom. We trust that you will find this series useful in complementing the wide range of training materials offered by the Female Health Company in an effort to expand access to, knowledge of, and support for this life-changing product. Denise van Dijk is the president of the Global Public Health Sector Division of the Female Health Company. She speaks about what the FC2 means to her, the road to the FC2, and the ongoing work of the Female Health Company to support women's access to choice and what that support looks like on the ground globally.
Many people ask me along the way, why do you do this work and why the Female Health Company? And I always love that question because for me there's such a higher calling in what we do. First of all, it prides me to work for a company that's so social in nature. That's a true social enterprise, a company that uses part of its profit to invest back into people by training and building capacity of ministries of health, of NGOs, but also the users, the women themselves. I also pride myself in the fact that we have been one of the front runners in setting up public-private partnerships, something that's just now developing, but that we have been a part of since the beginning of the company. Furthermore, I really believe in the product of the female condom, but it's not just the product itself, it's what it represents in terms of a bigger picture. To me, the female condom represents having choice in your life, offering choice to women who are surrounded by environments whereby it's either male-dominated or there's a cultural bias or a religious bias, and they don't get to have as many options as they should get in order to fulfill their true potential. The female condom, this little tiny product, makes sure that they don't get sick, make sure that they won't have a pregnancy, and that in turn makes sure that they can actually finish their school, that they can get a job, that they can fulfill the dreams that they had as a little girl and reach their truest potential, not only empowering themselves, but with that, the people around them, their communities, societies, and economies as a whole. So you might think, why all the fuss about this female condom? Why are you so obsessed, Denise, with this tiny product? Because to me, it means giving women the right to choice back in their lives. So the Female Health Company has a lot of experience in training. We've been offering capacity building and training support to ministries of health and NGOs all over the world for the past 20 years. Our education materials have been adopted in some countries as their national curriculum on female condom training, but also on sexual and reproductive health and rights in general. And we pride ourselves on that. However, what we also see is that we just can't keep up with demand. So many people, so many NGOs, CBOs, consumers, governments are asking for our help in training and capacity building. And since we are distributed in over 144 countries, the Female Health Company thought it important to make sure that we can support as many people as possible. Now, we live in a digital age, and so we thought what would be the best solution to make sure that our training support reaches as many people as possible. And while we would like to be there in person with everyone, what can we do if that's not the case, or if NGOs want to program and train on the female condom themselves? And so we decided to develop this training series, which is a combination of education as well as information and entertainment, whereby we hope that the field itself of sexual and reproductive health and rights, whether that's a small community-based organization in Zimbabwe, or an INGO in Washington, or a government in Brazil, or a multilateral donor such as USAID can go to our website or can go to an app and just find the resources they need through these series. We've developed several modules that are all based on the training manuals that are already in use, and those training manuals are also already being used as national curricula for some governments, like I mentioned, and we really feel that because of the 20 years of experience, the rigorous testing all over the world in different countries, different contexts, different religions and backgrounds, this digital show or series is just the cherry on top. And hopefully we'll be able to reach even more people with the information on this, and especially the women themselves, so that they know that this option is out there for them. It offers dual protection, it offers safety, and it offers empowerment, because they themselves can control what they do with their body. And so we're very proud of all the guests that have so kindly agreed to be on the show with us. We have leading experts and practitioners of the field of sexual and reproductive health and education, many of whom we work with on a daily basis, that are participating and contributing to this series. The reason for that is because this series should not be about us, and it's not for us. This series should be about all those champions in the field of sexual and reproductive health education that we work with on a daily basis, and that we can hopefully contribute to, just if it is a little bit, by offering them this series and something to fall back on when they need more information and more support. The Female Health Company designed the first ever female condom with its FC1 female condom, or Female Condom 1. It was launched in the 1990s and was FDA and WHO approved in the mid-90s as well. Now, the Female Health Company was very, very concerned about the fact that they needed a good tool for women that was safe and both empowering. And so we made very well-informed decisions about the material that we were going to use. It was crucial to us that we didn't use latex, such as male condoms, because there are many people around the world who have a latex sensitivity or a latex allergy. And so we decided to use polyurethane. Polyurethane was a much stronger material, and it would also allow people with those allergies and sensitivities to still use it. And so the FC1 was launched, made out of polyurethane, in the mid-90s, and it was distributed worldwide very quickly, especially in the public sector, helping to fight the spread of HIV/AIDS. Now, the Female Health Company always listens to its customers, its users, and its partners, and we wanted feedback on this first ever prototype. And of course, every first prototype has its own issues and problems, and we wanted to find out what that was so that we could continue to offer women with the best option out there. Now, we quickly learned that there were two main issues with the polyurethane female condom. So what we found out was, one, that the material itself had a very high cost, and therefore the actual female condom turned out quite high in price as well. Now, this is an issue because we wanted to make sure that the product was affordable so that men and women could use it whenever they want it. Secondly, we found out that the polyurethane also had additional sounds when you used it. It kind of had a rustling noise to it. And the last thing you want is an additional soundtrack when you're in the bedroom to make you feel even more conscious. And so we took that feedback and we started looking into new material in order to develop the FC2 female condom, or Female Condom 2. Again, we wanted to make sure that we didn't resort to latex of all the reasons that I just mentioned. And so we found a material that could counter the two arguments against the polyurethane of the FC1, but also not having to go to a latex version, which was nitrile. So the FC2 female condom is made out of a nitrile. It still has the innovative design of the FC1 with the inner ring and the outer ring, but the material actually offers us a lot more benefits. First of all, it's much stronger than latex. And an added bonus is that it can hold both water and oil-based lubricants. What is also great about the nitrile is that it actually gives you a more natural sensation during sex. It heats up to the body temperature, and so it feels more natural, more flesh to flesh. We also countered the sensitivity or allergies towards latex by using nitrile, and this also allows for women to actually insert the product a couple of hours in advance of having sex. Now, of course you don't need to. You can still insert it right before you want to have sex, but one of the main arguments we usually get is that a condom spoils the moment. Now, the FC2 female condom allows you to insert it a couple of hours in advance. So if you're going to go on a date and you want to be protected when you're in the bedroom and not ruin the moment, then you can already insert it in advance. And then if you do end up in the bedroom, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. So we're very proud to be able to have found an alternative and to have taken that feedback that we got from the field and all those expert practitioners and have integrated that into the FC2 female condom that is now distributed worldwide again.
Nick Twitchen is the Female Health Company's Director of Global Quality Assurance. Nick speaks about the manufacturing of and the strict quality and testing standards that the FC2 passes before it gets into the hands of women and men across the world.
FC2 is manufactured from a material called nitrile. Nitrile is a synthetic latex, so in other words, it's a man-made material, not a natural material. However, the manufacturing process is very, very similar to that's used for male latex condoms. It starts off with formers that are condom shaped. They are dipped into the liquid nitrile in our case, and then the material goes through a series of drying ovens. We then roll the top retention feature as part of that manufacturing process. Once that stage is complete, we then electronically test every single female condom. They go on to another former, and then you attempt to pass an electric current through the device. If it doesn't go through, it means it doesn't have any holes. If it goes through, it means there's a hole and the product is rejected. Once it's completed that test, we then insert the polyurethane ring, which acts as the insertion device and the inner retention device. We lubricate it, fold it, and then put it into the sachet. And once it's in the sachet, we then add the lot number, manufacturing date, and expiry dates. We then, as part of our in-process testing, take some of the product and then fill it full of water and then pressurize it by hand to look to see whether there are any holes in it. So you're looking to see whether there's any microscopic holes in the product. And that's after it's been tested, so that it really is a very robust product. The product has to be approved by regulatory authorities around the world. This ranges from FDA in the US, EC in obviously covering Europe, SABS in South Africa, Tanzania, Nigeria, and many of them have sort of slightly differing regulations, although there are core tests that are required by those bodies. We have to be able to demonstrate that the female condom will maintain its integrity for its shelf life. The way we do that is initially by doing high temperature stability, where you expose the product to a high temperature, but for a short time to simulate the shelf life. So you have an idea whether the product will maintain its structural integrity and it won't develop holes. Once you've done that, you then have to do a 5-year, because that's the shelf life of the product, real-time study where you have to put 3 batches of product into conditioning ovens that are at high temperature and high humidity to mimic the climatic zones around the world, to show that your product will be safe, stored anywhere in the world for its shelf life. Once you've done that, you can actually then looking at the safety of the material. And the way that's done is by testing it for cytotoxicity, vaginal irritation, because the product's going to be held within the vagina for a period of time, skin irritation, and there are various other biocompatibility tests that have to be conducted. Because nitrile is a new material, you have to be able to demonstrate that the nitrile sheath is a good barrier to semen. So what you have to do is you effectively fill the device with a liquid that contains a bacteriophage, and then monitor to see whether it will pass through the walls of the sheath. And that's a test that's required in a few countries.
Mitchell Warren is the Executive Director of AVIC, an HIV advocacy organization dedicated to the development and delivery of HIV prevention options globally. He speaks about localizing HIV prevention responses, the importance of scientific research and community ownership, and the ongoing work to continue expanding the basket of HIV prevention options.
AVAC works around the world, but with a particular focus in East and Southern Africa. And I get asked all the time, why? If the whole world needs an AIDS vaccine, why focus so much in this region? And the reality is, whether you are a researcher or a policymaker or an activist, you need to go where the epidemic is. And very sadly, the bulk of the epidemic is in East and Southern Africa. And it really started for me 20 years ago in South Africa, focused on the female condom as an additional option that was needed for people, that wasn't perfect, that wasn't for everybody all the time, but was an added option that could empower people to have more choices in their lives. What we do know throughout family planning, and now increasingly throughout HIV, is that when people have more choices, they're more likely to choose something. If you only have a dichotomous choice between A and B, you may end up making that third choice, which is to use nothing at all. So if we have more and more options from which people can choose, they're more likely to find something that works for them. And that's really what this work is about. How do we create those options, and how do we deliver those options? You know, in the early 1990s, when I was living here in South Africa, and we introduced the original female condom, and then after that, FC2, what became very clear is that it had a huge role to play in building a range of capacities across a range of different audiences. So what I mean by that is that when we first introduced it, it became very clear that it wasn't just about a woman being able to use FC or FC2. It was about helping her in building out a network of people who could support that activity. And that meant, first and foremost, working with healthcare providers. Because if a woman wants to use a product, or thinks about a product, or has heard about a new product like FC2, needs to know that there are people in the health professional community, in civil society, in the AIDS service community, who understand the product, who understand women's bodies. You know, one of the first things we found in working with the female condom in 1994 here in South Africa was that women needed to really learn about their bodies. And this is a great opportunity to use a product to help women learn about their bodies, to really talk about sexuality, to talk about a product in the context of their lives, not just HIV and HIV risk, but about sexuality, about relationships, about pleasure. What was amazing too about FC2 is even if the product didn't end up in the vagina to provide protection in that sex act, the fact that there was a product, that there is a product that women could control, that a woman could initiate outside of her partner without having to have her partner involved in the conversation. It's a very empowering activity. So we think about this female condom, this FC2, as a sheath with a ring at the end and a ring on the inside, and it's so much more than a product. It really is a tool to empower and really to change the conversation. It was also a chance to talk about pleasure. You know, so often in HIV, we rightly have to think and talk about people's risk, about the virus, and these are difficult conversations. But of course, at the end of the day, when many people are thinking about sex, top of mind is not HIV. It's not HIV risk. It's not, do I trust my partner? It's about pleasure. It's about having sex and being in the moment. And the FC2 has really been one product that has allowed women to be comfortable and to feel empowered and to understand and recognize that it's not about HIV risk, but it's about sexuality, it's about having sex, it's about pleasure. Now, no product by itself is going to transform sex into some magical activity, but FC2 really has been shown to help women take control. And when you can take control and feel in control and feel that I now can protect myself, that can really unleash the opportunity talking about pleasure. You know, the work in HIV has often led people to want to find the next big thing in prevention. So, of course, we still look for an AIDS vaccine. We look for new forms of pre-exposure prophylaxis. And it's never really a zero-sum game. It's not as if one of these new interventions replaces any of the old ones. And there are people who say now that we have PrEP, now that we have voluntary medical male circumcision, maybe we don't need condoms, whether male condoms or FC2. And that's just rubbish. I mean, the reality is there will never be a single magic bullet in this epidemic. It is never going to be about treatment only. It's never going to be about PrEP only or circumcision only or FC2 only. And at the same time, as we get these new interventions, they don't diminish the things we've already got. There are people who love using FC2. There are people who love using male condoms. There are people who feel very confident taking a pill every day. And we need to encourage and promote that. And for those people, they have a product that works for them. And we need to see if there are other people who want to have options like that. And there are people who will choose other things down the road. And there'll be things like injectable PrEP. There'll be a vaccine someday. But it never should diminish the need for the products we have today. And right now, when we think about this virus, when we think about this epidemic, FC2 is one of a handful of things that people can use to stay HIV-free. That's a powerful, powerful thing. And we've had it now for 23 years, and we haven't taken full advantage of it. And even as we get the new interventions, they should be opportunities to reintroduce the things we already have. So as we think about rolling out PrEP, we need to make sure people still have, and more people get, access to FC2 and to male condoms and hear about circumcision where it's appropriate.
Ayina Akilotan is the Communication and Prevention Manager of the National Program for Combating AIDS and STIs in Togo. Here, Ayina speaks about the prevention of HIV and other STIs in Togo and the importance of the technical support provided by the Female Health Company.
Bonjour,
In Togo, we have a generalized epidemic with rates of 1.7% among men and 3.1% among women. Higher percentages are seen among sex workers, up to 20% amongst men who have sex with men, and a troubling epidemic amongst prisoners. In addition, 70% of STI cases occur in women. Early pregnancy rates of under 18 girls is as high as 17.3%, and this is a serious concern for us as it feeds into the rampant backstreet abortion industry. In a nutshell, the status and vulnerability of women and girls to STIs, HIV and pregnancy in Togo is alarming and deserves our undivided attention, now more than ever. Through our partnership with the Female Health Company, we have begun scaling up our FC2 project with support from UNFPA and the Togo HIV Civil Society platform. A feature of this project is the training of more than 300 FC2 and health ambassadors in Lome to cascade this support across our health regions. The support we received from the Female Health Company enables us to standardize programming across the country, and we will reap the rewards of this partnership for generations to come, as our health systems become more and more resilient. The Togolese government has made a firm commitment to undertake the promotion of the FC2 to support its prevention, empowerment, and rights programs, and goes hand in hand with male condom distribution efforts. Male involvement is essential because women still do not have decision-making power over many areas of their lives, including sexuality. The FC2 in Togo is a revolution for women, an empowerment, personal and economic development tool, and this continues to encourage us to ensure that our programming and social marketing efforts work together to strengthen access and availability of the FC2 in Togo. Professor Sheila Tlou currently directs UNAIDS in the East and Southern African region. She shares with us her lifelong engagement with the HIV epidemic, the importance of prevention, and the logic behind keeping young people on the agenda and in the driving seat.
I first heard of HIV in 1983. So I went into it, but I really thought this thing would take like 10 years, and within 10 years we'll have finished it off. But nothing like that. I was a young woman then. I'm finding myself an older woman still engaged in the AIDS response. At UNAIDS, we say treatment is prevention. But then, let's face it, we cannot all treat ourselves out of the AIDS epidemic. We have to prevent and ensure that we have people who are completely AIDS-free. Condoms. You know, we've had those for a long time. But at that time, it was only for prevention of pregnancy. But they are still just as important now as they were then, because for once we have a device that will prevent pregnancy, that will prevent STIs, that will prevent HIV. And indeed, it is therefore important that we have condoms. It is important that we work with young people to ensure that we use their own communication strategies in terms of making condoms as sexy as possible. So we are finding now that with the stay free, start free AIDS response, we are using more and more young people. And they're able to therefore develop their own communication strategies and really commercialization to ensure that it is appealing to young people. We need to really put it out there as still the one thing that can be used to really prevent all sorts of things. So that's why, even when I was a minister, I was very concerned about the fact that we have only male condoms. because male condoms are exactly that. They are male controlled. But I felt that we needed also some female controlled condoms. And indeed, the only problem was that that female condom was very expensive, but we had to subsidize it because I used to say to people, look, we men need to be able to negotiate safer sex and to be able to say, oh, you say you have forgotten your condom? Okay, I have mine. So I was able to launch a condom called Bliss in Botswana. And the interesting part is that at that time, my colleagues were ministers and also members of parliament were not comfortable in talking about sex in parliament. And they were actually very resistant to my coming to launch the condom in parliament. But then I had to think of how have we been promoting the female condom? You know, a lot of the promotions were negative. Oh, it makes noise, it whatever, it's too big. So I simply said to my colleagues, the males, I said, actually, let me tell you about the female condom. For women who have never experienced an orgasm, once they use it, they see God. And not only was I able to launch that female condom, my colleagues got packets to go and introduce the female condom in their constituencies. So up to today, Botswana still subsidizes the female condom. We give it for free as well as the male condom. And we ensure that young people can actually have all those little jingles to ensure that they promote it. So we need to really have female control methods if we are going to end this epidemic.
When you use it, you see God. Professor Tlou hits the nail on the head. Protection and pleasure is what it's all about, and something we will continue to hear throughout this series. I hope you enjoyed the first episode and now have a better understanding of the origins of the FC2, the work that goes into keeping the FC2 of the highest possible quality before it gets into your hands, the importance it has in the lives of women and men across the globe, the benefits of engaging governments and never forgetting to think about the reasons why we have sex. Pleasure. That's all for episode 1 in this series. In episode 2, we will look at programming to get the FC2 into the hands of communities around the world and how we continue to provide support and technical assistance where needed. We will also learn about how public sector programming works in several contexts to advance awareness of and access to the FC2. And you will meet some of our amazing ambassadors for the FC2. Thank you for watching. The FC2 is available in these countries across the globe. For more information and to learn more about how we can support you, visit fc2femalecondom.com.